I do think there's a couple teams out west that will look at Jeff Petry now from Montreal. And if the Habs were to flip Petry, it's interesting because I think overall Petry to like Edmonton, I mean, where he started, like it's about $4.5 million right now for Jeff Petry after the Penguins retained 25%. So if I'm the Habs, I'm looking at even a team like Edmonton being like, hey, we'll take back a CODY CECI or something, or we'll take back one of your contracts. And if you sauce in a draft pick, like a second round pick, if you're Edmonton, I think Petry at like 2 point something, like that's a good deal for Edmonton. And then you know what? They could really solidify that defense core if you're the Oilers. So I think a defense pair of like Ekholm and Petry would be really interesting. A couple other teams that could look at a Petry would be the Dallas Stars. I think if, again, the Montreal Canadiens and Dallas Stars have made a trade before in the recent memory, I think if the Stars could get Montreal to retain 50% of what's left, and I'll pull up the exact amount here of what the Habs have Petry for, but I think the Dallas Stars could look at a Jeff Petry trade from Montreal. They've been looking for that right shot for a while. I think in the past, they were interested in Erik Karlsson, but you know what? I just think, here's the thing. The Stars have been looking for a defenseman to build around Miro. And Lindell's kind of been that. But when you have guys cycling through the lineup like Miller, Hakanpää, and they're just trying to figure out different, I feel like that kind of let the Stars down in the playoffs. Like, I feel like they didn't have enough help around Miro, and we're seeing like Miro play crazy amount of minutes. It's just not realistic at all. So if we look at the cap friendly for the Habs, sorry, I think the cap hits for Petry is about, let's see. It's retained 25%. And they have David Savard and Matheson. Outside of that, like, they're kind of laughing. So, okay, so yeah, the specific cap hit for Jeff Petry right now in Montreal is 4.687,500. So just under 4.7 million of a cap hit. So as I said, if the Habs retain 50% and flip it to a team like Dallas, like Edmonton, you're getting Petry at about 2.3 something mil. That's super cheap for Jeff Petry, who, I mean, can fill into the top four. So Dallas would be one of my favorites for Petry. Edmonton, I was trying to think of like one other team. I mean, Florida could be a candidate there, but I don't know if Montreal wants to trade in division. I know St. Louis was maybe looking at a right shot guy, but it looks like they might just keep Parayko, so maybe they want to stand pat on that. Outside of that, I don't see too many other options outside of Dallas and Edmonton. But again, there's like, if Petry gets traded to another team, that's the option. Yeah, I mean, even Colorado would interest me there because the Avs, they lost Eric Johnson, and I feel like they could look for a cheap option on the right side. Maybe the Avalanche. I mean, the Avs just traded with the Habs for the Newhook deal. Maybe the Avs could look at a Jeff Petry. So yeah, I mean, I would say Dallas, Colorado, Edmonton would be three teams I would look at, maybe trying to get Jeff Petry 50% retained from this current retention situation in Montreal. So 4.687,500. It's not bad for Montreal if they were to keep Petry, but I know there were the rumors of Petry doesn't want to play in Canada, and Eric Engels did come out that the Habs will likely flip Petry. And if it is 50% retained, as I said, $2.3 million for Jeff Petry, that is a steal for the next 2 years. Even with him being older, even with him being past his prime, and maybe some injury issues, $2.3 million is super low risk for Petry. So Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas, I feel like those are some teams that could talk to Montreal about Petry. I would say Seattle to throw in. Good shout, Francesco. Again, my thing is you have to look at the scenario of what Seattle's willing to give up and the direction of the team. But Jeff Petry could be interesting in Seattle. That's another one. You know what? Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Because they were in on Erik Karlsson potentially here, so maybe they go for the veteran. That's the one team I actually forgot about. So, yeah, after the suggestions of Colorado, Dallas, and Edmonton, I would put Seattle in that conversation too, especially if they can get Montreal to retain 50% of what's left. Seattle's another good shout. I would also look at Dante Fabro as a guy that maybe Nashville still moves. They have too many NHL caliber defensemen there. So, Dante Fabro to a Seattle, or maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe Nashville's still willing to trade a Tyson Barrie. And I know a few teams will look at Tyson Barrie as an option, and apparently he's a good guy to have in the room. Whether that's Seattle or maybe Dallas looks at an option like that. I don't know if Nashville's trading in division like that, but Nashville and Montreal, I feel like, are two teams that still might make some moves in that sense. A couple defensemen. I know Montreal wants to leave room for opportunity from guys like Gooley, Harris, Chekai, Reinbacher, go down the list. So Montreal having a few veterans right now, and obviously they're probably going to flip Petry. Are they going to move a guy like David Savard at some point? I think they're going to keep Matheson probably. So we'll see what happens. But I do think teams like Nashville and Montreal might move a defenseman or two still.